In a rural American town, a young woman from the countryside accepted a marriage proposal from an 18-year-old billionaire in exchange for erasing the debt that weighed heavily on her ailing grandmother. She traveled to New York City, intending to surprise her grandmother, Marjorie, who worked there as a housekeeper. Several months had passed without any contact, and according to her grandmother's friend and co-worker, Miss Barbara, the keypad on Marjorie's phone had broken, preventing any calls. The young woman decided to make the trip to give her grandmother a surprise upon arrival. She had expected a joyful reunion, but upon reaching Marjorie's quarters, she found her grandmother unconscious in the room. Alarmed, she rushed to her grandmother's side and gently shook her to rouse her. Her heart pounded in her chest, fear coursing through her at the sight. "Grandma, what happened? Please wake up," she called, her voice trembling with concern. Her desperate pleas drew the attention of the other housekeepers, who hurried into the room, all of them equally shocked by what they saw. "What's going on in Marjorie's room? What?" blurted one of them, only to stop upon seeing the older woman lying there. Ms. Barbara, who had just arrived, froze as her eyes darted between the young woman and the unconscious grandmother. "Oh my goodness, what happened to her?" Ms. Barbara exclaimed, rushing closer. "Why won't she wake up?" "I don't know," another answered, clearly distraught. "We need to get her to the hospital right away." With no hesitation, they brought Marjorie to the emergency room. Even though money was tight, the granddaughter mustered all her courage to beg the hospital staff to admit her grandmother. She was fortunate to meet people with kind hearts who agreed to help. Soon after, the doctors revealed the cause of Marjorie's collapse. "Your grandmother is anemic," explained the doctor. "That's why she lost consciousness." The young woman felt her spirits sink upon hearing the diagnosis. "Is it severe, doctor? Is her life in danger?" she asked. The doctor adjusted his glasses. "It can be serious if not treated properly, but there is medication for this, so you don't need to worry too much. She simply needs adequate rest, sleep, and nutritious meals." He proceeded to explain more about Marjorie's condition, leaving the granddaughter guilt-ridden. She realized that overwork was a huge factor in her grandmother's collapse. At 65 years old, Marjorie should have been taking it easy. Instead, she was still forced to keep working because of a debt owed to her employer. Adding to the burden was the imprisonment of Uncle Derek, which had led Marjorie to take on even more work. His time behind bars did not suffice to pay off what was owed. The granddaughter had no idea what kind of debt this was, but she feared that if her grandmother continued her grueling schedule, one day she might not wake up at all. Marjorie was her only family, someone who loved her dearly, so she refused to let that happen. The day after Marjorie was admitted to the hospital, her granddaughter went to the mansion where her grandmother worked, determined to speak with its owner, Logan Thompson Jr., in hopes of giving Marjorie the rest she desperately needed. However, Ms. Barbara tried to dissuade her. "Mr. Thompson doesn't entertain visitors without an appointment," she said apologetically. "You have to go through his secretary first." "But I'm not at his office, Ms. Barbara," the younger woman pleaded. "This is about Grandma Marjorie. I promise it won't take long. He's here, isn't he?" "Yes, he's here, but I'm sorry," Ms. Barbara answered. "He gave strict orders not to be disturbed today. He only just arrived from Canada." "Please, Ms. Barbara," she begged. "I'm doing this for my grandma." "I'm truly sorry," Ms. Barbara replied, "but I can't risk my job." Both women suddenly fell silent at the sound of a new voice and looked up to see a handsome young man descending the mansion's grand staircase. He was tall, with chiseled features, fair skin, and a dimple in his right cheek. This had to be Logan Thompson, Jr., the employer's son, whom Marjorie had cared for when he was younger. It seemed he was 2 years younger than the visitor, who was now 20. Though he was supposedly only 18, his demeanor suggested someone much older. Mr. Thompson, Miss Barbara greeted him quietly. He cast a downward glance at the young woman. What's going on here? He asked. Miss Barbara, as far as I recall, I'm not accepting visitors today. Are you looking to get fired? His cutting tone made Miss Barbara fidget nervously, but the granddaughter quickly spoke up to catch his attention. Mr. Thompson, please, may I speak with you? She asked. And why would that be? He raised an eyebrow. Who are you? Do you have an appointment? I don't, she admitted. But, Ms. Barbara, show this woman out, he ordered. I don't want my time wasted. He cut himself short, though, when she boldly grabbed his arm, desperation evident in her face. Please, just a moment. It's really important, she insisted. It's about my grandmother, Marjorie. At the mention of Marjorie, his expression momentarily softened, though he tried not to let it show. Finally, he pried her hand from his arm and said, All right. Follow me. She trailed behind Logan Thompson to the second floor. While climbing the stairs, her mind drifted in disbelief that this man was only 18. He seemed too poised and mature for such a young age. Once they arrived in his office, he sat down in a swivel chair and placed his hands on the desk in front of him. What about Marjorie? He asked. Say it quickly. She drew a deep breath. I came here to ask that she be allowed to stop working, she began. She's old and she's not in good health. I know she's still here because she's paying off some debt. But please, if there's a way for us to settle her debt differently, we'll do it. She really needs to rest so she can recover. If necessary, I'll work on paying off whatever she owes, even if it's in monthly installments. She wasn't able to finish her plea because Logan Thompson suddenly laughed and got up from his chair, sending a chill down her spine. The laugh felt cold. What did you assume Marjorie's debt was? Money? He asked, stepping closer. Her neck craned back to meet his eyes, for he was so tall. That's not a simple cash debt, miss. It was a request she made that I initially didn't want to grant. She wanted her son released from jail in exchange for her lifelong service to me. Her eyes widened at that revelation. What? He kidnapped me when I was 17, Logan explained. He was sloppy and tried to shake me down for money. He clearly had no idea who he was dealing with. He thought I was just a friendless kid. A heaviness settled in her chest. She couldn't believe Uncle Derek would do such a thing. She had always known him as a kind man, and here it was. Marjorie's service was the cost of a request she had made to free her son from prison. Grandma Marjorie is old, she reiterated, voice trembling. She can't serve you forever. You must understand something, Logan said coolly. I'm not making her suffer. She moves around of her own accord. No one's telling her to overwork herself. Tears welled in the young woman's eyes, and when they fell, Logan brushed them away almost absent-mindedly. Oh, don't cry, he said, releasing her chin and returning to his desk. She hurriedly wiped away her tears, mind racing for another strategy that might convince him. Before she could speak again, he spoke first. I do have an offer, he said, sliding a document and a pen across the desk. Folding his arms, he continued, I'll let your grandmother stop working. I'll also pay her hospital bills, and more than that, I'll see to it that your uncle is released. In exchange, you will marry me. Her jaw dropped at his words. There was no hint of humor in his expression. Looking down, she realized the document before her was a marriage contract. Confused, she asked why it had come to this, why she had to be his wife. All you have to do is sign, he reiterated, and everything I've mentioned will happen. She swallowed hard, her voice shaking. But why do you want to get married? Because Grandma Felicity wants me to settle down. She keeps saying she'll never come back from Canada unless I find a wife, and I don't have a girlfriend, he replied in an even tone. So what's your decision? She swallowed again, reached for the pen, and held the contract in trembling hands. If it would help bring Uncle Derek back to his kids and let Grandma Marjorie rest, maybe this was the only way. Besides, she had no real plans for her own life. Marrying him wouldn't be much of a loss for her. She signed the marriage contract and then stepped back. Logan Thompson smirked, checked her signature, and nodded. "Welcome to my world." She left his office and finally felt like she could breathe normally. She was uncertain if she had made the right decision, but at least Grandma Marjorie would get a chance to rest and recover. She was now officially the wife of an 18-year-old billionaire. Soon after, Grandma Marjorie cried with joy upon seeing Uncle Derek released. Standing outside the county jail, tears streamed down her face as she embraced her newly freed son. His 2 children were also there, and the small family clung together in a wave of emotion. "Mom, I'm so sorry," Uncle Derek sobbed. "I regret everything." "Son, oh my son," Marjorie wept, hugging him tightly. Someone suggested they should thank Logan Thompson for helping, though the young woman secretly rolled her eyes. She knew he'd only agreed to help because of what he would get in return, her signature on a marriage contract. Marjorie, however, asked her granddaughter what she had done to accomplish all this. The girl didn't reveal the truth about the marriage contract, telling her grandmother only that she had volunteered to work in her place until she fully recovered. Marjorie believed her without further explanation, especially when the granddaughter started packing her belongings to move into the mansion. Before the young woman left, Grandma Marjorie clasped her hands in gratitude. "Thank you, dear. Thank you so much." "It's nothing, Grandma," she replied. "I'll be all right. At least it'll give me a job." Marjorie squeezed her hand gently. "Forgive Mr. Thompson if he seems cold. He lost his parents at a young age and only has Grandma Felicity in Canada. I feel sorry for him, really. He has to take on so much responsibility at 18. He can't even enjoy being a teenager." The granddaughter simply nodded, unable to find the words. She had no idea what awaited her in her new life, but she hoped she could somehow get along with Logan Thompson. When she moved into the mansion a few days later, the staff welcomed her with friendly smiles. Ms. Barbara said, "Mr. Thompson told me to bring you straight to his room when you arrive." She swallowed nervously and made her way there, only to discover him asleep, lying on his stomach. She didn't know what to do, uncertain if she should wake him. Walking closer, she studied his sleeping form. She noticed that, in slumber, his face was gentle, almost puppy-like, she thought, and found herself quietly admiring his sharp nose, thick eyelashes, and well-defined brows. It was as if he'd been blessed with remarkable good looks, but his attitude was another story. She was about to turn around when he suddenly opened his eyes and caught her staring. His hand shot out to grab hers and pull her toward him on the bed. Startled, she found herself mere inches away from his still sleepy gaze. "Good morning, my wife," he said in a husky, just-awakened voice. Her eyes went wide and she tried to get up, but he pinned her in place and grinned in a way that made her heart pound uncomfortably. Then she realized with horror that he wasn't wearing a single piece of clothing. He reached up to touch her face. "Aren't we supposed to be, well, affectionate now that we're married? Should we start doing married things?" That was enough to break her out of her shock. She shoved him off as hard as she could, accidentally striking him in a very sensitive area. With a yelp of pain, he fell away. She sprang off the bed, and in her rush, she got a full view of him with no clothes on, enough to make her flush from head to toe. Panicked, she bolted out of the bedroom, ignoring him as he called her name. Logan Thompson nursed his bruised pride during dinner that evening, glaring at her as she ate calmly. He'd just confirmed that his new wife was not the sweet, gentle girl Grandma Marjorie had described. Still, despite the chaos, She had solved a huge problem for him by allowing him to meet his grandmother's demands to settle down. "Hey," he said pointedly, locking eyes with her, "you nearly broke something important this morning." She didn't answer, continuing to scoop her food. He raised an eyebrow. "You almost shattered our future," he declared sarcastically. "I might not be able to give you children if you keep that up." Her spoon clattered against the plate, and she stared at him in disbelief. "Why would you get me pregnant?" she asked, sounding horrified. "Well, you are my wife," he pointed out, feigning exasperation. "If I'm going to have kids with anyone, it'd be you." Her cheeks flamed red, and she quickly averted her gaze. He felt a small surge of satisfaction at her reaction, and continued eating as though nothing had happened. "By the way," he said, glancing at her again, "my grandma is coming back next month because she wants to meet you. Make sure you act like a real wife. If she wants a great-grandchild soon, I expect we'll have to make one. Understood?" She choked on her water and promptly began coughing, her face turning red. Logan Thompson couldn't help laughing. He kept a mischievous grin on his lips. Despite being married, he was still very much a CEO in the making, often underestimated by older, more experienced colleagues. Yet he'd had no choice but to grow up quickly after losing his parents. He assumed the mantle of CEO at a young age, sacrificing his adolescence for the family business. "Grandma Felicity wants you two to visit my rest house next month," his grandmother said over the phone. "Go and enjoy yourselves. Then I'll follow. I have lots of souvenirs to bring you." "Good morning, ma'am and sir. Welcome to the Thompson Rest House," greeted the caretakers with bright smiles. They arrived by midday, exhausted from the trip. Logan casually followed the staff who dragged their luggage inside. The property was large, with enough space for several guest rooms. "Why can't we just stay in separate rooms?" the young woman muttered, more to herself than to him. "There are plenty of rooms," Logan said, as though reading her mind. "But we're husband and wife. We stay in one room and do what married couples do, especially since Grandma Felicity is going to drop by eventually. We have to make sure she believes we're close." She had no argument against that, so she had to endure it, reminding herself again of what he'd done for her family. In the days that followed, Logan took her to a nearby farm owned by his family. She was amazed by the variety of animals, while Logan explained that he managed the farm himself. He admitted some people advised him to sell it, but he kept it out of respect for his mother's memory. "That's lucky," she observed. "You'll never need to buy meat for burgers or steaks ever again." He gave her a look. "These animals aren't raised just to be roasted at my whim," he said. "They're sold to proper buyers." She rolled her eyes. "And they get turned into food anyway. Same outcome." He sighed, turning away. She spotted some horses and hurried over. Unfortunately, the first thing she saw was a pair of them, apparently in the midst of mating. "Oh!" she yelped wide-eyed. Logan stifled a laugh and said they had come at the wrong time. But the sight had rendered her speechless, her eyes glued to the stallion's impressive anatomy. She had never witnessed anything like it in her life. She didn't react until he placed a hand over her eyes. "Enjoying the view?" he teased. "Don't worry. One day we'll do that too." Her heart leapt, and she reddened at his insinuation, quickly trying to dismiss how easily his simple touch could affect her. She reminded herself that he was only 18, yet there were times she almost forgot because of how serious he seemed. Weeks passed at the Lake Tahoe house, and one morning Logan surprised her by cooking breakfast himself. She had discovered that he was allergic to shrimp. He had eaten it anyway to avoid hurting her feelings, leaving his face alarmingly red and swollen. They were in their shared bedroom, where she was tending to him. "That was stupid," she scolded, pressing a damp cloth to his forehead. "Why'd you eat it if you're allergic? You could have died." "It would have been a shame to waste your cooking," he replied, with a tired grin. "Besides, Dying because of something you made doesn't sound like such a bad way to go." She sighed and shook her head, about to walk away, but he caught her hand and pulled her onto the bed. A startled sound escaped her lips as she landed on top of him. "Is my wife angry?" he teased. She noticed how close they were, close enough that she could hardly move, her hands braced against his chest. She tried to figure out a way to push him off again, but in doing so, she brushed against a certain area and heard him groan. He closed his eyes, breath hitching. "Careful," he muttered. "Are you all right?" she asked, alarmed. Then she felt a hard bulge near her stomach, something that made her cheeks flame. Her hand, in a panic, pressed there, making him gasp in pain. "Oh, damn!" he hissed. She scrambled away, right as an elderly woman stepped into the room, dropping her bag at the sight. It was Grandma Felicity, Logan's grandmother, just back from Canada. "Logan! Oh my!" the older woman exclaimed, eyes darting between them in astonishment. Both of them untangled themselves, the young wife hastily straightening her clothes. Grandma Felicity's eyes shone with amusement rather than shock. She quickly scooped up her bag. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I interrupted your baby-making. Don't mind me. Continue." And with that, she slipped back out, still smiling mischievously. Logan heaved a long sigh and helped his wife to her feet. "We need to go see her," he said. She nodded, but her face was still burning from embarrassment. When they joined Grandma Felicity in the living room, the older woman was perched regally on a couch, pouring herself some tea as they sat down across from her. She smiled as though nothing had happened. "At last! I finally get to meet you in person, my dear. You must be the lucky woman who captured my grandson's heart," she said, beaming. The young wife offered a small smile. "Yes, ma'am. He's been very good to me," she answered, though inside her head she was recalling how good he'd really been. Logan placed a hand protectively on her shoulder. "I'm lucky too," he said, giving her a quick, knowing look. "She's caring, a great cook, and very loving." Grandma Felicity clapped her hands together excitedly. "Oh, that's wonderful news. Now I won't have to worry about you anymore, Logan. I can die happy someday." "Please don't say that, Grandma," Logan objected softly. She tittered. "So, should I be expecting a great-grandchild before the year ends? You're only 18, dear, so you should have a baby every year. That's how we build a big family line. Don't be like your father, who only managed to have one child." The wife blinked at how casually Grandma Felicity laid out her plan for them, as if she expected them to churn out children annually. That would quickly wear her out, but Logan just said, "All right, Grandma, we'll make sure to meet your expectations. Isn't that right?" He smirked in a way that made her blush. She tried to glare at him, but he squeezed her chin affectionately, and her cheeks turned even redder, a reaction that pleased him. Grandma Felicity squealed with delight. They spent the next few weeks at the rest house with Grandma Felicity, trying to show they were every bit the happy married couple. The older woman was fun-loving and affectionate, traits the young wife recognized in her own grandmother as well. She could see just how much Grandma Felicity cared for Logan, the sole family she had after his parents' death. One morning, the older woman ambushed the young wife while she was relaxing on the veranda. "How are you, dear? Have you made a baby with Logan yet?" She turned bright red. No, not yet, ma'am. We're taking things slowly." "Nonsense," Grandma Felicity declared, gently tapping her shoulder. "You've been married a month already. There's nothing normal about waiting that long. You should have started on babies by now." The younger woman fell silent, painfully aware that she and Logan had never even kissed in earnest. Grandma Felicity produced a red book, handing it over. "This has everything you need to know," she said. "Different positions, tips, all the good stuff. If he won't take the initiative, then you do it." "Ma'am, She was mortified. "I don't think—" "Just read it. There are video tutorials too. but I find those too graphic. It's better to learn from a book." Grandma Felicity pressed the book firmly into her hands. "Go on, don't be shy. You need to keep our family line going strong." The young woman was too stunned to reply. She was still trying to process the situation when Logan strolled out of the house sipping a cup of coffee. Spotting him, she reflexively hid the book behind her back. "What's that?" Logan asked. Nothing," she stammered. "Something your grandma gave me. It's not important." He arched an eyebrow, setting his coffee on the small table. "If it's nothing, then let me see." He reached out and she quickly backed away, but he was taller and easily snatched it from her. "Hey, give it back," she demanded, face flushing. He flipped through the pages, brows rising. Is this a book? Why are you so embarrassed?" He was about to open to another page when she shoved him hard in the chest. He lost his grip on the book, but in the push, she twisted her ankle, so they both ended up tumbling down onto the porch floor, landing in a heap. Just then, Grandma Felicity appeared behind the glass door, eyes lighting up in delight. "Well, well, have you been practicing the techniques in that book, dear?" she asked, laughing. Logan picked himself up, dusting off his clothes. "What book, Grandma?" he asked. "I gave your wife a guide on how married couples do things. There's no shame in it." The young woman's face could not get any redder. She clamped a hand over her mouth, wanting to vanish. It's just a cookbook, right? It's about cooking," she fibbed, stumbling over her words. "That's all?" Logan eyed her skeptically. "Cooking?" he echoed. "I guess if that's what Grandma says." She seized the book again and cradled it protectively. Grandma Felicity chuckled and teased them both, urging them to head to the kitchen and cook, if that was truly what they planned. During their month-long stay in Lake Tahoe, small miracles continued to happen. Logan even became more thoughtful, gifting his wife flowers every few days. Sometimes he cooked for her, took her swimming in the pool, or watched TV together in the evenings. Slowly, the initial hostility between them softened. She didn't expect they would ever get along, but they found themselves growing more comfortable with each other. After a few weeks of this, she finally gathered the courage to ask him a question while they shared a quiet evening on the rooftop, staring at the moonlit lake with glasses of wine in hand. "Why do you keep giving me flowers?" she asked. "Does it mean anything?" He glanced at her calmly. "Because you're my wife," he said, which left her feeling slightly disappointed. She drank the rest of her wine, her cheeks hot. "Is that the only reason?" she pressed. He stood up and moved behind her, making her turn her head in confusion. "Gather your hair on one side," he instructed. She set her glass aside, pulling her hair over her shoulder as he asked. He then slipped something around her neck. She heard a small click and looked down to see a beautiful necklace resting at her collarbone. He placed his hands gently on her shoulders. "I'm in love with you," he murmured. Her heart pounded. She looked back at him, her eyes wide. "You..." "What?" His expression was serious as he repeated, "I'm in love with you." Leaning down, he kissed her gently. That was the moment everything changed. Their complicated relationship found a turning point in that kiss, accompanied by the tender gift of a necklace. It suddenly became clear that fate had conspired in its own way. A desperate deal to save her grandmother and uncle had led them to each other, and now her heart was finally ready to accept it. After 1 month, they returned to New York so life could return to normal. Yet something had changed. Madison and Logan now cared about each other. Logan even brought her, along with Grandma Felicity, to his company to introduce Madison as his wife. It became big news in the media, and Madison was shocked to learn how famous Logan's family really was. Because of this, Grandma Marjorie also found out about their marriage. During a phone call, Grandma Marjorie sounded completely stunned. "You've been lying to me, child. Are you really married to Logan?" she asked in disbelief. How did that even happen when you'd never met him before? Madison cleared her throat and glanced at Logan, who was in his office listening to her call. Grandma, the thing is, did you cast a spell on him, Madison? Grandma Marjorie accused. Why on earth would you do that? Madison blushed. I did not, Grandma. If anything, he's the one who put a spell on me. That's probably why I love him now, she added, rolling her eyes when Logan gave her a playful smirk. Anyway, Grandma Marjorie, please don't worry about me. I'm happy with my life now, so there's no need to be upset. You really scared me, child, and then you startled me further by popping up on TV, the two of you. Of course that made me panic. Everybody in our town is talking about it. Madison sighed. Let them talk, Grandma. It won't improve anyone's life. Please don't stress yourself. Remember what the doctor said. Oh, all right, Grandma Marjorie replied. You still shocked me, but take care, okay? After Madison ended the call, she looked at Logan, who seemed to have wrapped up his tasks and was now simply sitting and watching her. Logan, she said. He stood and walked over, slipping an arm around her waist and kissing her on the forehead. Let's go on a date, he whispered in her ear. A movie date. She rested a hand on his shoulder and smiled. Sure. They started acting more like a young boyfriend and girlfriend than a married couple, probably because they were still quite young. Even though Madison was technically older by a couple of years, he was much taller than she was, making their age gap less obvious. Besides, he was fun to be with, and she was thrilled at whatever it was they had. Weeks later, the couple was invited to a party at a resort. Most of the guests were business people like Logan, but he was clearly the youngest among them. Oh, the famous 18-year-old billionaire CEO is here, exclaimed a bald man, shaking Logan's hand enthusiastically. Madison hung onto Logan's arm, feeling slightly nervous because this was her first time at such an event, and her somewhat revealing dress didn't help her discomfort. Welcome to the party, the bald man went on. Thank you, Logan replied. By the way, this is my wife, Madison Thompson. Hello, the man said, eyes gleaming as he lowered his gaze to her chest. Instantly, Madison felt self-conscious. Wow, you look absolutely gorgeous, the man said, grinning widely. I'm Wilson. Where are you looking? Logan demanded, stepping closer to Wilson. Her face is up here, not at her chest. Wilson paled and cleared his throat. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Logan took Madison's hand and steered her away from the bald man. Why on earth are you wearing that? Logan hissed once they reached their assigned table. You're practically spilling out of the top. Her temper flared at his remark. When he pulled out a chair for her, she sat down with a huff. Who bought this dress, Logan? Wasn't it you? He took a seat too. Well, I didn't expect you to have, actual mountains there. You look flat in your everyday clothes. She shot him a lethal glare, but he kept going. Just cover yourself, he said, taking off his tuxedo jacket. I'm the only one allowed to see that. He stood, draped his jacket over her shoulders, and was adjusting it when they both turned at the sound of a woman's voice. Oh my, how sweet, said a striking woman with short hair, wearing a red dress that matched her red lipstick. She looked like she stepped out of a dramatic TV show. She even had the confident stance to match. Logan's eyes went wide. Candace, he muttered. The woman, Candace, gave him a sugary smile and batted her eyelashes at him. So you do still remember your ex, I see, she said. I heard you got married from the news. That's why I accepted this party invitation, to see it for myself. Her gaze flicked dismissively over Madison. And it looks to me like you're with some housekeeper. Madison's jaw dropped, feeling both offended and angry at the insult. Candace, Logan warned in a low, dangerous voice, if you have nothing important to say, leave. I do have something to say. Logan, I'm not happy about what you did, Candace said, suddenly looking teary. You broke up with me, and then you just got married out of nowhere. Is this just to make me jealous? If so, then congratulations. It worked. I'm jealous. Madison couldn't believe what she was hearing. So this woman was Logan's ex, and it sounded like their breakup happened shortly before Madison had signed the marriage contract. Candace, I broke things off with you because you cheated, Logan reminded her coldly. You slept with someone behind my back. Why would I marry you just to make you jealous? I love my wife now, and she's definitely not a maid. Madison saw Candace flinch at Logan's words, but then, abruptly, Candace started crying. Logan, I'm pregnant. I already told my parents that you're the father, and they want to see you. They want to talk with you. Madison felt her world crumble in that instant. The coat she had been clutching slipped off her shoulders, and she felt her heart twist painfully. What the? Candace, that's not… They want to meet you, Candace repeated between sobs. I love you so much, Logan. Before Madison could process the words, Candace flung her arms around Logan right in front of everyone. She could hear the whispers from nearby guests. Goodness, he got another woman pregnant? Poor wife, witnessing all this in public. She's so young, stuck with a cheater. They say this is Mr. Logan Thompson's ex from before he became CEO, so it's entirely possible it's his baby. Logan shoved Candace away, sending her stumbling onto the floor. Without missing a beat, he turned to Madison and grabbed her shoulders. Nothing she said is true. There's no baby, not from me. Let go of me, Logan. Her voice quivered with emotion. She picked up his coat and handed it back to him. I'm going home. She stood, ignoring the curious stares of wealthy onlookers, her chest tight with too many emotions. But what did it really matter if he had gotten Candace pregnant? Their own marriage had started as a trade, freedom for Uncle Derek and rest for Grandma Marjorie. She had no right to complain, and she certainly didn't want her family dragged into this drama. Unfortunately, the worst was just beginning. After that party, Candace started showing up at the mansion, insisting that Logan accompany her to meet her family. Logan confided to Madison that Candace's baby wasn't his, claiming to be completely innocent, and hinting that Candace's lover was actually an older, married man. Candace was supposedly blaming Logan so her married partner wouldn't face disgrace. On a day Logan was at work, Candace arrived at the mansion. She plopped herself down on the sofa, even kicking her feet up on the coffee table, and addressed Madison with a smirk. I'm waiting for Logan. I'm not here to see you, she declared, stroking her barely there baby bump. I'm really going to have his baby. Madison crossed her arms. Then why did you sneak around with that older married man? She asked, voice dripping with sarcasm. Candace bolted upright. What did you say? Oh, pardon me. Logan said the father of your child is an older married man. Madison shrugged. That's why you two broke up, right? That's not true, Candace cried, temper flaring. He's just in denial because he's married now, but he can't escape the truth, and if he won't acknowledge it voluntarily, I'll make him. I don't want my baby to grow up in a broken home. I'll do whatever it takes to break you two up. Candace stood and headed for the door, presumably to track Logan down at his office. In a flash of anger, Madison lunged after her and yanked her hair. Ow! What are you doing? Candace yelped, turning around to grab Madison's hair. In retaliation, Don't you dare chase after my husband, Madison spat. He's not the father of your baby. He is, Candace retorted. They pulled at each other's hair, practically brawling near the mansion's front door. It only ended when a voice cut through the air. What is going on here? Demanded Grandma Felicity, who had just come in. She was accompanied by her driver and had taken off her sunglasses in shock. Madison and Candace let go of each other, turning to face her. Immediately, Candace rushed over to Grandma Felicity. Oh, Candace, Grandma Felicity said warily. What are you doing here? Candace clung to Grandma Felicity's hand, and the older woman looked perplexed. Grandma Felicity, I'm pregnant. Logan is the father, so you're going to have a great-grandchild." "A great-grandchild?" Grandma Felicity echoed, glancing at her own knees, as if the phrase had suddenly become literal. "What are you talking about?" "I mean you're going to be a great-grandmother," Candace clarified. "Logan got me pregnant months ago, before he left me." Grandma Felicity's jaw dropped, her eyes darting to Madison. "But why were you two fighting?" she asked. Candace took that as her cue. "Because I wanted to go see Logan at his office, and she tried to stop me," Candace said in a pitiful voice, tears welling up. "She pulled my hair and wouldn't let me leave." "My goodness!" Grandma Felicity gasped, turning to Madison. "You shouldn't do that, dear. What if something happened to the baby? Is that something you could ever fix?" "Grandma," Madison began, voice shaking, "that baby isn't Logan's. Candace had an affair with someone else, which is why Logan broke up with her. She's pinning it on him because—" A resounding slap rang out, Grandma Felicity's palm colliding with Madison's cheek before she could even finish her sentence. The older woman was livid. "How dare you speak that way, just because my grandson supposedly got someone else pregnant?" she snapped. "Get out of here. Take this money and leave us alone." Grandma Felicity tossed an envelope onto the table. Madison's eyes widened. "What is this?" she asked, feeling her chest tighten. "It's money," Grandma Felicity interrupted. "Take it and end this marriage. Don't worry. I know you're not greedy, but I need to do this. I can't stand to have a grandchild born without a proper family name." Madison stood, anger flaring inside her. "Grandma Felicity, thank you, but I won't accept that. I know you're wealthy. You have all the money in the world. But maybe you should save it for a paternity test on Candace's baby, if she's really pregnant with Logan's child." Grandma Felicity's nostrils flared, and she lurched upright. "Get out! Don't you ever show your face to me or my grandson again. If you do, I'll make sure your family suffers for this." With those words ringing in her ears, Madison left the mansion. She couldn't believe Grandma Felicity had such a cruel side, that she trusted Logan's ex more than her own grandson. As she passed through the gate, an idea sprang to mind. She would find the husband of the older woman Candace had been involved with. Logan had shared the man's name, after all. If no one else was going to fix this, she would. She refused to let Candace win, and she wouldn't allow Logan to be forced into fatherhood for a child that wasn't his. Meanwhile, Logan himself was in a foul mood. He had been practically dragged by Grandma Felicity to meet Candace's parents for a fancy dinner at an upscale restaurant. Candace sat beside him, clinging like a barnacle. If he could have defied Grandma Felicity, outright, he would have stormed off, but she was the only family he had left. Still, Logan worried about Madison. He was terrified that one day she'd grow tired of him and realize how powerless he was, despite having the resources of an 18-year-old billionaire. He wished he'd gotten Madison pregnant instead, just to ensure she would always stay with him. An hour later, Grandma Felicity finally arrived. Candace stood to greet her. Logan noticed his grandmother looked oddly tense, as if something had set her on edge. "I'm so sorry to keep you waiting, Mr. and Mrs. Austin," Grandma Felicity said, after settling into her seat. "I had a few matters to handle, but everything's sorted out." "Oh, it's fine, Ms. Felicity," said Candace's mother. "We're just happy that Logan is willing to talk to us." Candace's father added, "It would be such a disgrace to our family if our daughter gave birth without a father at her side." Grandma Felicity turned to Logan. "What do you want, Mr. Austin?" she asked. Candace's father drew a deep breath. "I want your grandson to marry my daughter." Logan sprang to his feet. "But I already have a wife." "Logan," Grandma Felicity warned, grabbing his arm. "Sit. Weren't you the one who wanted to get married in the first place? Well, now that you are, you're refusing this. I'm not the father of Candace's baby," he said through gritted teeth. glancing at Mr. Austin, whose face darkened. "Is that your final answer, Mr. Thompson?" Mr. Austin asked. "You're only 18 and suddenly a billionaire CEO, so any scandal about you will blow up fast. If this ends with you denying my daughter's unborn child, it'll destroy your credibility." "Grandma," Logan growled, "do you see what's happening? This is your doing." She shut her eyes in frustration, but before she could respond, Candace burst in tearfully. "Why are you denying our past, Logan?" "This child is yours." Before the situation could escalate further, a new voice suddenly chimed in. "Candace!" The entire table turned to see the older married man, Mr. Cook, stepping forward. Logan recognized him from the name Madison had mentioned. Mr. Cook's expression was grim, and Candace's parents looked completely confused. "And you are?" Candace's mother asked sharply. "Do you know my daughter?" Mr. Cook sighed. "What's going on here, Candace? You came to me claiming I was the father, but now you're telling your ex the same thing." Candace shot to her feet. "Get out of here!" she cried. "Why should I?" Mr. Cook retorted. "You left that kid for me, remember? Then you insisted the baby was mine. Now you want to pin it on somebody else?" Candace went pale, and her parents gaped in astonishment. Grandma Felicity seemed tongue-tied. "No," Candace stammered. "Mom, Dad, it's not how it sounds. Mr. Cook is mistaken. Logan's the father, not him." "Is that so?" Another voice joined in, startling them again. It was Mr. Cook's wife, and right beside her stood Madison, who waved lightly at Logan. Logan nearly sagged in relief at the sight of his wife. Mr. Cook's wife fixed her glare on Candace. "You told my husband he was the father, so what's this about your ex now?" Candace took a step back. You misunderstood. He isn't—" "You sneaky homewrecker," Mr. Cook's wife hissed. Without warning, she slapped Candace hard across the face, right there in front of Mr. and Mrs. Austin. "And you knew he was married, but you went after him anyway. Was it fun? Do you like hooking up with older men?" Mrs. Austin tried to compose herself. "Do you have evidence for these claims, Mom? Otherwise, I could sue you for slander." "I don't care if you sue me," Mr. Cook's wife said flatly. "You should keep your daughter on a leash." She dumped a stack of photos onto the table, pictures of Candace and Mr. Cook, some of them shockingly explicit. Candace gasped and clutched her head, while her parents stared in horror. Grandma Felicity, too, was speechless. It became painfully clear that Logan had no responsibility for any child in Candace's womb. Logan quietly stood up. "I think I've seen enough, Mr. and Mrs. Austin. Have a good day." He strode away from the table and went straight to Madison, who was waiting for him. Without hesitation, he pulled her into a tight hug and kissed her. "That was you, wasn't it?" he murmured, bringing in Mr. Cook and his wife. "Yes," Madison replied softly. "I'm your wife, Logan. I won't let anyone take you away from me." He gently pinched her cheek, unable to hide his grin. Any frustration he'd felt melted away. He slipped an arm around her and kissed her on the forehead. "Let's get out of here." They exited the restaurant with Logan's arm draped over her shoulders. He realized just how lucky he was to have Madison. She never gave up on him and was the only one who truly believed him. He chose not to return to the mansion just yet. Instead, they spent the afternoon strolling around the city. They held hands while they watched a street clown perform for passers-by. He couldn't help smiling at his wife, wishing they could freeze this happiness in time. "We're still moving out, even though Candace is gone now, right?" Madison asked as they walked along the sidewalk. By then it was 10 at night, and Logan's bodyguards were keeping a discreet distance so as not to intrude on their moment. He stopped, turned to face her, and touched her chin, prompting her to stop as well. "Yes, it's better for us to have our own place, so we'll have some privacy." She placed her hands on his shoulders. What about Grandma Felicity? She'll be lonely without us. She won't be staying here long, he answered. She plans to go back to Chicago soon, where she really lives. And in the meantime, I can let your family use the mansion if you like. That way it won't sit empty. Her eyes grew round. But I only have Grandma Marjorie, and she already— I just don't want it empty, he said with a shrug. I want to live alone with you, Madison. You and only you. Her gaze fell to his lips when he murmured, I love you, Madison, and I want to kiss you right now. Then kiss me, she whispered. He smiled and leaned in, pressing his lips to hers. When they finally broke apart, they laughed softly and continued strolling, hand in hand, feeling content. Then, on his birthday, Madison prepared a special gift. Logan, open this, she said, handing him a small box. He slid an arm around her waist, curious. What is this? He mused as he lifted the lid. When he peered inside, his eyes widened. A pregnancy test lay in his palm. He looked up at her in disbelief. Look at it, she prompted, pointing. He did, and the meaning of the result was unmistakable. His eyes went even rounder. I'm going to be a dad, he whispered. Really? Yes, Logan. She smiled, excited tears brimming in her eyes. We're going to be parents. Yes, he cried, overjoyed. He lifted her off her feet and spun her around. Thank you, Madison. Thank you for making me the happiest man alive. This is the best present I've ever gotten. He planted a kiss on her lips, and she laughed softly, leaning into him. She reflected that, once upon a time, she'd thought being married to an 18-year-old billionaire was a curse, but it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. This was how their story began. The end.